Hi, everyone, and welcome. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Elena Ortega-Tauler. I'm an attorney and founder of Legacy Trust Counsel. Today's workshop is an essential topic. We're going to be covering how to protect your assets and avoid the financial ruin from the high cost of long-term care. We'll discuss effective strategies to keep your hard-earned money in your assets, while also ensuring that you receive the care that you need. So once again, I'd like to extend a warm welcome. Thank you for being here. And as you guys know, I'm an estate planning attorney, and I'm the proud founder of Legacy Trust Counsel. I'm also a mother of 5. And throughout my practice, we have helped thousands of people protect their assets, their homes. But I'm very privileged to have helped these people across Florida doing their estate planning and their long-term care protection. So, like I was saying, I'm a proud mother of 5. I have raised 5 young adults, wonderful human beings, and I think that's my biggest accomplishment. But what we're here today about is providing you the peace of mind that comes from knowing that your assets and your health will be taken care of if anything should happen to you. So our mission is to help you secure your family's future and to protect the assets that you've worked so hard to build. So our agenda, I want to go over that quickly. Today, we'll be covering some key topics to help you navigate the complexities of long-term care in Medicaid planning. We'll be discussing long-term care, which is paid for in Florida, or how is it paid for here in Florida. The basic eligibility rules for Medicaid are very important, and the strategies to help you protect your retirement assets from being exposed to the Medicaid spend down. We're going to talk about what that means. But Medicaid spend down means that basically you will have to spend your own money sometimes if you don't plan ahead or if you don't have the right advice to protect your assets when you need to go to a nursing home or some kind of specialized nursing care. We'll also go over some real life cases, some scenarios and examples to demonstrate how these strategies can make a difference for you and your family. But first, here are 3 things you must know. And we're going to step aside from the long-term care aspect of things right now to go over what estate planning is and what the process is. Because maybe you have done some estate planning. And if you haven't, maybe you can put some estate planning in place as well. So I'm going to ask you first and see if you can go on the chat and speak back to me that way and tell me if you have a will or some other document that you've put in place as part of an estate plan. So if you can go to your chat and put yes or no, if you've done any kind of planning, estate planning, a will, or some kind of legal document like a power of attorney, something like that, that you've put in place. So I see some of you have done something, which is good, but very few of you. So of the people here, only about 10% have done any kind of planning before. So let's talk about a will. What is a will? A will is a document that takes effect only when you die. So before you die, this document is kind of dormant. It's not alive. So anything that you put in a will is not going to take effect until you die. Even if you become incapacitated or if you can make decisions for yourself, the will is not going to have any power. If you put in there something like, if I get sick, I want my daughter to take care of me, that's not going to take effect, right? Because you're still alive. So if you die with any property under your own name, then your property has to go through a court case called probate, right? And this is a case or a process that takes place in court. And the judge, rather than you or your family, really, is making the decisions. So the judge is making the decisions according to Florida law. Because if you don't have a will, the state of Florida already has one for you. It's called intestacy laws. So this process of probate, whether you have a will or not, is the process that if you die with property under your name, if you do no other planning other than a will, then this is the court process that takes place. Now, it's expensive. It's also voluntary because it doesn't have to be this way. Also, it takes a long time, an average of a year, sometimes more. So this process is really giving priority to creditors. So people that may have a claim against you, your stuff, your property, they get to put their claims in before your family can take any money or any benefits from your estate, right? Like I said, it's really very expensive. It costs about between 5 to 10% of the value of your estate. So take the value, for example, of your home, any money or retirement assets that you may have, all of that, calculate about 5 to 10% if you have to go through the probate process. And this will go to attorney's fees, appraisal fees, all kinds of fees, not a benefit to your family. So if you don't like this, then I really don't blame you. I wouldn't either. And there's good news. It can be avoided. So how do you avoid this? Well, there's a process that you can put together when you're alive and well, and it's called a trust. So a trust is an agreement. It involves three parties. The parties are played by you during your lifetime. The grantor, you're always going to be the grantor because it is your stuff. So when you create a trust, you also have the power to manage it during your lifetime. And that's called a trustee. So this is the role also that you would be playing. And you're also the beneficiary because it's yours. So you can do anything with it during your lifetime. And if it's revocable, which at this level of planning, most likely it would be, then you can change your mind, you can go back, you can sell it, you can buy other property and put it in your trust. And this is what a trust is. When you're no longer here or when you're incapacitated, you're going to name a successor trustee, someone who's going to be stepping into your shoes to make decisions for you. So this successor trustee is going to be somebody who's going to take action for you, the way that you put in place or you decide in your trust, right? So you're going to give instructions in your trust for every situation that you may be involved in. And this trust is also going to include disability provisions. So what would you want to happen if you become incapacitated? So this is all part of a complete planning that is called a trust. It needs to be funded also. And what funded means is like, imagine that your trust is a treasure chest, right? In there is going to be the title to your home. It's going to be you, but as the trustee to your trust, so that if anything happens to you, the trust is already the owner of your assets. So no probate court, no judge is necessary. This would save you and your family a lot of money, grief, waiting, and a lot of waste in resources. Also, remember this, if you have property in more than one state and you don't transfer those properties, or if it's real estate, to your trust, then you would need to open other probate cases. in another state or wherever that property may be, right? So you assign your personal property in there, but things like bank accounts, you can name your trust as the owner so that your family can get it without having to go to court. And the other thing, if you're a business owner, which some of you are, then your business also can be owned by your trust. That way, your business doesn't have to suffer and die if you die or become incapacitated. So I wanted to go over all this briefly, and it hasn't pretty much nothing to do with long-term care, except that some of these assets are now going to be possibly at risk for the nursing home qualification with Medicaid. And I'm going to go over that because this is really the focus of this workshop. How is long-term care paid for? So imagine that you have money that you've set aside, you have retirement assets. What's going to happen to that money if you need to go to a nursing home or your spouse needs to go to a nursing home? If something unexpected like a stroke, an accident, some other form of disease like dementia or Alzheimer's, things like that. What would happen then? Well, let's talk about what long-term care is, right? Long-term care refers to ongoing assistance, which would be required by individuals with some kind of chronic or disabling conditions. These conditions might require nursing care, constant supervision. It is typically defined as the inability of a person to perform daily activities. So activities of daily living, ADLs, that's what is referred to. And they can include things like bathing, transferring from like a bed to the chair, dressing, toileting, eating, things like that. So there's also cognitive impairments like Alzheimer's disease and dementia that are also common reasons for needing long-term care. So long-term care, though, is not just in a nursing home or a nursing facility. As a matter of fact, a lot of people are surprised to know that most long-term care is provided at home. So a lot of people really don't want to go to a nursing home. They'd rather stay at home with their loved ones, right? But they still need assistance. They still need care, nursing care, and things like that. And this is an important distinction because when families want to have their loved ones stay at home for as long as possible, they still have to find a way to pay for it. Now, long-term care has been growing in need and also in cost. So it's estimated that about 14% of the population in the US is made up by elderly seniors over 65, right? And this is projected to increase. And the cost of long-term care is also projected to increase. Right now, it is about an average of $10,000 a month. This is a lot of money, and this can deplete all of your resources if you don't plan ahead. So like I was saying, about $330 per day is the cost of long-term care. Nationally, the cost can range from about $8,000 to over $10,000. In Florida, it is over $10,000 per month. So if you calculate, it's about $125,000 a year. And people sometimes cannot afford to keep going at that rate to continue to pay for their nursing care, and they need help. We're going to talk about that. Who pays for it? Who will pay for long-term care? And there are several ways to pay for long-term care, but each option comes with its own challenges. These include private pay. That's when you use your own money to pay for nursing home. So if you use your own money, you would need to deplete everything you own or have before Medicaid will start paying for it, right? So Medicare, it's a big misconception. A lot of people think that Medicare will pay for it. And they've said, well, I've worked my whole life. I have Medicare. I have Part A, Part B. I have, just everything covered by Medicare. And can be true for health, needs, healthcare. But when it comes to over 30 days of this long-term care need, then Medicare will not continue to pay. This might be paid by a program managed by Medicaid, but it comes with a lot of restrictions and you need to qualify. And we're going to go over that. Medicaid is the biggest payer of long-term care, but it comes with a lot of challenges and regulations or requirements. So it is very interesting that over 70% of all long-term care is paid by Medicaid, because most people don't have the kind of money that it would be required for you to just continue to pay out of pocket and still have enough money to not go broke. Now, what is private pay? Well, when paying privately for long-term care, you use your own retirement assets, your savings, to cover the cost of specialized nursing care. And the government expects you to pay before seeking assistance. So to be fully self-insured, you would need between $5 million and $10 million invested in some sort of retirement assets to generate the kind of income that you could still keep your principal and still afford, your nursing care at the rate of $125,000 a year. As you can see, this is a lot of money. Most of us don't really have that kind of money. So what about long-term care insurance? You might say, well, some people have long-term care insurance, but even when they do, it may not cover everything. Also, long-term care insurance has strict underwriting requirements. So a lot of people don't qualify, or the insurance may run out. And we said before, and this is a big item here that I do want you to learn today, is who will pay for your long-term care if not Medicare? Because Medicare does not pay after 30 days. Some instances, 100 days after an event in the hospital of 3 nights, then Medicare will pay for some days, but they will stop paying. And then the nursing home is going to look at you paying or you applying to Medicaid. And this is where, like they say, the rubber meets the road. This is the tough point, really. How do you qualify for Medicaid? We're going to go over that in a minute, because it is critical that you know what the guidelines are for Medicaid. There's also, what I mentioned briefly, there's also veteran benefits that might pay for some long-term care, but you have to qualify. And you have to have been in active duty, for example, at least 1 day during wartime, and have received an honorable discharge. And the benefits that it provides can be about $32,729 per year. But as you can see, that may not even be enough, right? So here's the good news. Medicaid does pay for extended long-term care events. Yes, it does. Medicaid is the primary payer for long-term care events. And it operates as a public-private partnership. And that means that it requires a spend down. It requires you to spend your own assets in order to qualify. So it doesn't mean that you have to go completely impoverished if you have a spouse at home, because, the government realizes that if you have a spouse, they still need to live and to be able to afford food and housing and that kind of stuff. But as you can see, that still requires planning, and we will go over that. Long-term care, Medicaid, basic eligibility rules. This is such an important aspect of it, because understanding these basic eligibility rules for long-term care Medicaid is essential. Florida has strict asset limits. Now, there's something called asset limits and there's income limits. We're going to cover the asset limits, which is usually the biggest problem and the biggest hurdle that people encounter. These limits vary depending on your marital status, like I was saying before, and your living arrangements. The key in protecting your assets is knowing which assets are countable and which are not countable. So which are exempt from disqualifying you, basically, from the Medicaid eligibility, right? So why is it important to know these eligibility rules? Well, it's obvious that knowing these Medicaid eligibility rules is critical to protect your assets and your income so that you can keep more of both your assets and your income. It allows you to receive care, the best possible care, either at home, like we were talking before, or in a facility. And I can help you by going over all the aspects that are required for you to consider here in this workshop. We're going to go over those now. What's Medicaid spend down? So first thing is what's protected and what's unprotected. Okay, and the assets that are not protected are your assets that are at risk that you need to plan for. So all of your assets fit into one of two categories, right? So think of two columns. One column is the countable, and that's the not exempt. And the other column is the exempt. So things like your principal place of residence, one car, some personal property, some retirement accounts, and prepaid funeral plans are among others, the exempt. Countable is everything else that you haven't protected and that can go on that column. But with proper planning, you can safeguard these assets as well. So what are the Medicaid spend down rules? Florida has strict limits as to assets. Imagine it's only $2,000 because that's what it is. So anything that you have over $2,000 that is in the countable column, you would need to spend down. In other words, you would need to pay out of your own pocket for your Medicaid assistance in long-term care. So for married couples, it's a little bit more, it's $3,000. If both spouses are in a nursing home. If they're not in a nursing home, then the amount is more and there's a little bit more leeway there. We'll talk about that. So that's what we mean by community spouse, right? That's the community spouse protection. When one spouse is at home, we call this the well spouse. So the well spouse is at home and they still need to pay the rent or the mortgage. They still need to live and put food on the table while their spouse is in some kind of rehab or skilled nursing facility. And hopefully they'll get better. But if not, then at least there'll be some protection for the community spouse at home. So transferring assets within the 5-year look-back period can result in perhaps a penalty based on, your own situation. Each case is different. So we would have to be very, very careful when you give away assets, transfer assets, because this can be counted against you as not being covered by Medicaid, and Medicaid may not cover you until the time lapses that you should have paid with those assets that you gave away, right? And that's what's called divestment, a gift or a transfer. So let's look, for example, so that we can understand better how it works. Let's look at this example. Imagine Mary, who has 3 grandkids. So in 2023, she gave each of them $15,000. She said so that they can go to school and so that she can go ahead and give them something while she was still alive. But in 2024, Mary enters a nursing home, and now those assets that she's been down to $2,000, otherwise she would qualify, except for the $45,000. So in Florida, those $45,000 would be divided by the Florida divisor, which is $10,438. And this would result against Mary for a penalty, of 4 months, 4.3 months, during which time Medicaid will not cover, and she will need to find resources to cover for those months in the nursing home. So this is a big problem when people give away money and don't realize that this could count against them for 5 years. Now, if it's more than 5 years, it doesn't matter, because even if you gave away anything or everything, Medicaid cannot go and look back. So it's called the look back period. If any of you have any questions so far, if you would put it on the chat so that I can see if you're understanding so far. And also at the end of the presentation, we'll give you some opportunity to consult about your own specific situation. This all is very worrisome and can be confusing, right? But don't worry, because we have solutions. At Legacy Trust Council, we focus on finding solutions for you and your family when it comes to qualifying for the nursing home and protecting your assets at the same time. We want to make sure at the end of the presentation, like I said, that you will have an opportunity to consult about your own specific questions and your own situation. So don't worry about that right now. You can note and write down these questions so that you won't forget. So let's talk about Medicaid planning. What is Medicaid planning? And Medicaid planning is about restructuring. So what can we do here? We can restructure your accountable resources to qualify for Medicaid. And we can do this as quickly and cost effectively as possible so that the process can be performed by an experienced elder law attorney quickly and, like I said, efficiently. So it is a complex legal process, and it's best to address that with an attorney and not take it upon yourself to find answers and put a plan in place for yourself, because it may end up hurting you. So how much does this planning cost? To give you an example, you can estimate an average of what it would cost to be in the nursing home for 1 to 1.5 or 2 months of nursing home care, right? So some law firms include Medicaid application process, which it can be lengthy and complicated and confusing for families that are going through a crisis situation. In our office, in our fee, we include this Medicaid application process, in addition to putting in place all the resources that we have for you. So what are some of these top strategies to protect your assets from the spend down? There are several strategies and several others that we can't address in this webinar or in this workshop, but some of these strategies include how we can put in place how we can restructure your assets to move them from the countable to the not countable. And if you don't qualify for long-term care insurance and you don't need the care yet, then you have more options. Like, for example, one option could be that you can take a risk by gifting assets, but if you do this and you don't need nursing home care for 60 months, that's 5 years, then remember, Medicaid cannot look back. So we talked to you about this process and how you can safeguard your assets and still be eligible for Medicaid under this type of calculation. And when planning ahead, we can also use the gift and wait strategy that some people use, but you have to be very careful what would happen if you suddenly need nursing home care. And what can we do then? It's called crisis planning. And we can still save a lot of your assets during crisis planning, but just not as many assets, right? So the best time to plan is when you're planning ahead. Crisis planning, like I was mentioning to you, is when a loved one needs care and or they're already in the nursing home. So somebody has been told, well, your mom is going to need to go to a nursing home because she has Alzheimer's or she's had a stroke and it's going to take months or maybe years for this process, for her to get better or for her to have the best care possible. So this involves like immediate action, and that's why it's called crisis planning. This immediate action is to protect your assets, but also to make sure that your loved one or you qualify without unnecessary delay. So we need to act quickly, and this becomes an emergency case. In our office, we deal with these type of cases all the time. So I want to give you a couple of examples. Like I said before, sometimes we learn best with stories. So let me tell you the story of Jack and Diane, right? Let's consider the case of Jack and Diane. So Jack is 78 years old, Diane is 75. They're facing a difficult situation right now. Diane has early stage dementia, but is needing to go to a nursing skilled facility. Jack was told that they don't qualify for Medicaid because they're over-resourced, is the name of it. It's what it means is that you have too much money or too many assets to qualify right now. Jack is worried because what about maintaining good care for Diane while covering his own expenses at home? You know, paying for his house and everything else. So Diane's cost is $9,000 per month, and their total assets, $380,000. This is not enough money to pay for Diane and still have some money for him to live off of. So, because even if he spent the $380,000 for Diane's care, how long will it take? About maybe 3 years before he runs out of money. So here's the outcome with proper planning. With proper planning, Jack and Diane can protect their assets while securing Diane's care by converting some countable assets into Medicaid, for example, a Medicaid compliant annuity. Not just any annuity, you have to make sure that it's a Medicaid compliant annuity. Diane can qualify immediately then for Medicaid, and Jack can keep the entire $380,000 in assets. So this is a win-win strategy, right? Because this strategy increases Jack's monthly income while ensuring that his financial stability is going to remain intact. And before the planning, Jack and Diane were at risk of losing $225,000, and this would have had to be spent down before they would have qualified for long-term care. right? So what this means is that they would have had to pay for their own care at the rate of $225,000 and until the money was all gone. And then Medicaid would step in and pay. As you can see, after planning, there was no loss of their money. That is a very good result here. What about if there's a single person? How do we plan for a single person? Let's consider the case of Angie. She's 84 years old. Angie has Parkinson's and is currently in a skilled nursing facility. She's been paying privately for her own care at the rate of $10,500 per month, using her $2,000 Social Security income and drawing from her savings. Angie, has $300,000 left, but without planning, her savings would only cover care for another 3 years. And this would prevent her from leaving any inheritance for her children. So what can we do? Well, our plan for Angie would be to recommend 2 strategies: a lump sum caregiver agreement for each of her children, to pay them for what they're already doing, right? And this is all within the Medicaid rules. So another option would be a fractional share in an income producing investment, real estate property. Then Angie could prepay her children $50,000 each to provide compensation for the care they're giving her. And this would protect the money and still allow her to qualify. This spends down $150,000 without the transfer penalty that otherwise would be incurred. So you have to be very, very careful that you're receiving professional advice before you start transferring money to your loved ones, because it could cost you dearly, could cost you a lot of money, much more than it would cost for you in legal fees for a Medicaid plan, right? So protecting your assets, we believe that you and your loved ones deserve to receive the care you need without being forced to spend down all your retirement money, being forced to go broke in the nursing home. Our mission is to help you achieve, and through careful planning and strategic asset protection, give you the best possible results. I want to remind you that this workshop is for informational purposes and educational purposes. It is not legal advice because we're not representing you until we have a contract to represent you and you become our client. But your choices when it comes to protecting your assets, you have basically 3 main choices. You can do nothing and hope everything turns out okay, but hope is not a solid plan. You can try to figure it out on your own, but many even professionals aren't familiar with Medicaid long-term care planning. It is very a niche and specialized area. Or you can let us help you get started for free, because our consultation and our planning consultation and meeting is absolutely free. We can put together between a 15 and 30-minute phone call consultation to see if you want to work with us and if you want to move forward with a specific consultation on your questions, your needs, your specific desires, right, for you, your family. So you can book a call, and we're going to put a link in the chat for that 15 to 30-minute phone call that you can reserve right now. Our spaces are limited for the planning session. So even if you get the phone call, if you don't move quickly to schedule your planning session, we may not have the spaces before the end of the year. And if you want to get that in place, then I ask you to try to get at least that phone call scheduled, right? So we can go over your assets, what it would mean to restructure, what the Medicaid eligibility requirements in your specific case would be. And we can do all this in a private one-on-one consultation with me. We offer also virtual consultations and in-person consultations here in our main office in Doral. So what happens after our time together? Well, at the end of our consultation, one of two things will happen. You will either thank us and just say you're not going to move forward. We will not have any problem with that. We'll part as friends, no questions asked. There's no obligation. So if you decide to work with us, then we'll move forward to schedule a in-depth consultation where we will go over your needs, your decisions, and that's called a design meeting, where we design all your desires and your objectives in the planning that we put in place for you. If you're ready to take that first step, then I invite you right now to schedule that phone call. If there's no obligation, you have nothing to lose, and you can ask your questions also during this phone call. So if you go on the link that you will see on the chat right now, you can just click on there and schedule the consultation or the phone call. You can also email us at office@Legacy Trust Council, or you can call our office at 305-514-0608. You can also visit our website for more information and resources. It is legacytrustcouncil.com. You know, if you take action now and you book your session, you can take advantage also of our one-time $250 discount applied to any planning that you put in place. And we do that because we don't want you to wait. We don't want you to delay and maybe not do something that you should be doing today. So secure that phone call, that consultation today. Also, if you have any questions, you can also ask him at that time, or you can email us for your specific situation. Again, if you have any questions, you can put them on the chat. Let me see if I see any questions right now. No, but I see that a lot of you have already scheduled your 15-minute phone call, and I'm looking forward to talking to you soon. Like I said, we can do this on the phone, but later we can have your planning done either virtually or in the office. You still have time to schedule that 15-minute phone call and receive that $250 discount. And I'm looking forward to meeting you in person, to talking to you on the phone. And I'm hoping to see you soon on the inside of our office and welcoming you as one of our future clients of Legacy Trust Council. So stay tuned for more information, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you.